All right. Welcome to Changing the Game. My name is Jordan Duran. I'm a career coach and a host here on Changing the Game, but career coach at Shift Group. With only 30% of all sales roles being held by women, Changing the Game was created to uplift the voices of female sales leaders who are making an impact. Today, I am joined by Haley Skarupa. Haley is a U.S. Olympic gold medalist in ice hockey and a three-time world champion. Before that, she was an NCAA All-American with Boston College. Haley is currently the head scout for the women's hockey national team and was very recently an account executive at Klaviyo. Welcome, Haley.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to
Amazing.
chat.
Yes, I'm excited for our chat too. That's an amazing list of accolades right away. So I'm really excited to get into it and share your story with everybody. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
I would love if you could kick it off right away and give us a little bit of background or tell us about your journey from, let's kick it all the way back, your journey to becoming a Division I hockey player. What was your life like growing up? How did you get there?
Yeah. I started just playing hockey because my older brother did. Pretty typical use case for a young girl who gets into it. I'm from Maryland, so it wasn't a popular sport for any kids growing up. So especially I was always the only girl on the team, which I really loved about that. It was, challenging to kind of have to keep up with my brother and his friends and the boys on my team, things like that. I think it was a great challenge. And so as I played all sports growing up, but I just loved how dynamic, fast hockey was and how it was pretty uncommon to have, girls playing at the time. So I kind of enjoyed that aspect. And so just played on a travel team. By like high school, I was like, all right, I kind of have to really focus on hockey. So stop playing other sports. And that's kind of when I made the U18 national team for the first time at age 15. And that's kind of when the exposure of colleges came about. And my parents went to Boston College. They weren't athletes at all, but that was always kind of a school in the back of my mind. If I was going to play a sport or not, it was always on my list. So I narrowed it down between, a few schools. BC, I wanted to be in Boston. Like Harvard was up there. Wisconsin was really good at hockey. Princeton was the closest to my house. So those were kind of my like top 4 or 5 schools. And then BC, just being on the campus, like everything about it, I fell in love with the coaches, the team. So that's kind of how I ended up there. And then it was really helpful to be there because there's a lot of national team players on there. Both of the coaches were Olympians. So that's kind of how I was able to prepare and, make the national team when I was older. So that's kind of my journey through hockey.
Yeah, that's amazing. It sounds like Boston College really was a no-brainer for you, kind of in your blood. So that's awesome. What was your experience like there? I read that you had a pretty successful career in college.
Yeah, I miss it so much. I can't believe how long ago it was. It was a blast. Like a lot of my teammates from the U18 national team, like I'd known a lot of the players on the team since I was 14, 15 years old going to camp. So it felt like home right away, which was really great for me. And then just the academic resources that you get, just because you're balancing, playing hockey for BC, being on the national team. Obviously it's a challenging academic school and I liked that about it, but it was great to have those resources available. And just the whole athletic department is amazing. It was just so much fun. Like going to the rink every day I always looked forward to it. I miss it so much, like living on campus right across the street from the rink. The men's team was really good. We had the Bean Pot, the big tournament every year with just, the best of Boston. So like the culture is just incredible. And it just sets you up for success down the road just because of, the community of people, especially, when I started getting into sales and like post hockey things, like the BC network just goes such a long way. So I'm really thankful for my experience there.
Yeah, that's awesome that you had such a strong network going into college and coming out of college. I actually don't know. You said the tournament. It's like everybody knows the Bean Pot is what you called it.
The Bean Pot, yeah. So it's BC, Harvard, Northeastern, and BU, and it's both men's and women's. It's like in February usually. I feel like they may have changed it recently because it's all at TD Garden now. But it's like the first big tournament of the year before playoffs, before Frozen Four, things like that. And it's just obviously pretty exclusive to Boston, and like any Boston school, it's always usually their favorite time of year just because it's such a historic event of who wins the Bean Pot. And one year us and the men's team won it. And so you just, celebrating with both of your Beanpot trophies is, just, it's super fun. So it's a good time.
It does sound like a really good time. I am embarrassed to admit I've actually never been to Boston. So, and I work for a Boston company. So go figure. I need to, JR, if you're listening, I need to get out there to the office. So
yeah, you do.
That's really cool. I also want to throw out there, I did read that you were are you the second highest scorer in Boston college history?
I think that's something that flies around there. The first is, just to make it clear, is Alex Carpenter. She was my, the reason why I probably had so many points is because I played with her for pretty much all, I think 3 of the 4 years, because she was at the Olympics for one of them. So I was, really lucky to play with such a phenomenal player. She's still on the Olympic team. She's one of the captains now, and
cool.
She taught me, a ton. So it would not have been possible without her. So, shout out Carp for all of your help throughout the years.
I love that. Spoken like a true teammate. I read that, so I wanted to pump your tires if you weren't going to. So
thanks.
That's kind of a good segue though. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your journey from college hockey to professional career.
Yeah. So after college, like the first year out of school, like I just trained full time leading into the Olympics. After the Olympics, which were 2018, I worked for the Washington Capitals because I'm from the DC area, more in like marketing and community and fan development. And then that kind of went into COVID where all sports kind of stopped. And so it kind of gave me some time to take a step back and reflect, like, what do I kind of want to do right now? I'm like, 20, I think I was like 24 years old at the time. Like, do I want to stay in sports? Like, I thought that was a really good opportunity to get out of my comfort zone and try something new. So I took I remember it was like right after like Labor Day, I took a whole month just like talking to anyone I could, in whether it was the BC network, just around Boston, like learning, trying to figure out about different industries, different companies. And it was through like a hockey connection, actually. We played, I think, like in a camp together many years ago, and we had a mutual friend. She currently was an account executive at Klaviyo, and I talked to her because I heard great things about the company, and I kind of narrowed it down to I wanted to get into tech sales, just because after talking to people and like the type of person I am, they're like, this is definitely like something that you would really enjoy, just the fast-paced, competitive, but like collaborative environment. You get to kind of own your success. And then hearing about like Klaviyo's product and, the growth and the culture, it was in Boston. It kind of like checked every single box for me. So after talking to her, especially, I was like, yeah, this is like a no-brainer of, somewhere I want to apply and work for. So that's kind of how I got started. And then you kind of you just hit the ground running once you start. I started as a BDR, and I loved it. It was exactly like what I needed at the time, just to kind of build a career outside of sports. And it's taught me so much. And yeah, I definitely had such a great time, like starting out in sales and kind of getting into that.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there with your journey from BDR to account executive and your current roles now. But I do, before we get too away from the athletic stuff, I do want to hear a little bit more about your Olympic career, your career as a world champion, and those skills transferred to your professional life.
Yeah. So after I graduated, basically I played for the Professional Hockey League at the time. And then there's a group of us in Boston who trained and skated every single day. So I played for me and my roommate at the time, played for a team in Connecticut, but we trained and skated in Boston. So 3-4 days a week, we were driving an hour and a half to Connecticut to practice, to play games. And then we would make it back for our morning skate and morning workout. So it was like, a constant grind. It didn't really feel like it at the time. And we weren't like getting paid pretty much anything to do it, which I mean, is fine. But like, it was literally to prepare for these upcoming Olympic tryouts, like the selection camp, where they select the top 40 players in the country to go to this camp. And then they pretty much narrow it down to half, who like ultimately train that whole year and make the Olympic team. So if it's a long story, but long story short, like I was actually initially cut from at that selection camp, and I didn't make the team originally. So I was living in Boston. I was like walking dogs, trying to figure out like what my next step is going to be when I was like 23 years old. Cause I'd been like, this has been my whole life. And so I was just kind of doing that. And then this incredible opportunity. The director called me and was like, we have some injuries. Do you want to, come back and, skate with the team? It's not a tryout, but, we want to have you back for a few weeks. And I hadn't skated or trained at all, but I was like, this is probably the only opportunity I'm going to get. So let's make the most of it. And then after those few weeks, she wanted me to come back for a real tryout. And then I ended up like making it. So that experience in itself has taught me so much about that. I learned so many lessons. Yeah. That's taken me through hockey, into sales, at just pretty much everything. And so after that experience, that's when it opened up a lot of doors, obviously going to the Olympics. It was an incredible, it's hard to really like explain because it's everything you think of and more, like having our families there, the Olympic Village, opening ceremonies, like it was so surreal. So, and then everything afterwards, like going on, the Jimmy Fallon show, Jimmy Kimmel, like meeting Serena Williams, like there were so many cool experiences that came out of that. And it just opened so many doors for different opportunities for me that I just try and maximize. And then that's kind of what led into the Caps and then, ultimately tech sales too.
Wow. That is such a cool story. And it really does sound like there were so many transferables, like not only from just pushing you outside of your comfort zone, having all those amazing new experiences, but being able to handle an amount of rejection and bounce back from that and ultimately see your goal play out in front of you and come to life. So do you feel like that's really served you well in your professional career as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like the resilience aspect of it. I mean, it sounds like so corny and cliche, but like that, I always think like whatever, someone tells me no during a sales call or like, via email, whatever it is, like nothing will be as like, astronomical as when I was like told that I wasn't going to be on the Olympic team. So if I can handle that and like bounce back from that, I think like, I can kind of handle anything just because that was like, it felt like life or death at the time, but obviously that's pretty dramatic, but like, that's what it kind of was. And then it also just teaches you like, how can you like learn from your mistakes and your failures and people saying no, just like having like a growth mindset. Like when I went back to the team, I kind of was just like, all right, how can I be impactful? How can I like set myself apart, whether it's on or off the ice? Like I'm not going to be as good as these players because I haven't been training or skating, but like what else can I do to make a difference? And that's always kind of like my mindset with really anything I do is like outside of the job itself, like how else can I make a difference and be valuable? So those were just like a few things that came out of that.
Yeah. I think it's so hard when you're going through those moments. Like nobody wants to be in that discomfort place,
right?
But when you're out of it and you make it through and you obviously have the skills now to look back and say, hey, this made me so much better. I mean, it's hard. It's hard when you're going through it, but it's amazing reflecting on it and how it has helped you become stronger in your, not only like when you made it on the ice with your team, but in your professional career.
Yeah. Like that's when I was like, all right, if I'm going to try, like when I was thinking, do I go into sales or just, I knew I was going to completely pivot and kind of start from the bottom of wherever I was going to. And I feel like a good foundation of like, I have the bandwidth and the confidence to do this. And if I mess up, like, we're just going to keep powering through because I've done this before. So I think it's really valuable to like put yourself out of your comfort zone and you like look back on it. It's like, you feel like you're in the trenches day to day, but then you look back and you're like, I look, kind of what I did and how I've grown from this and what I've learned.
Yeah. When you transitioned out of your professional hockey career, then to your professional career in sales, did you feel some of that discomfort right away? Or what was that transition like? I mean, you obviously did some reflecting and thought this would be the route for me, but did you still feel some of that resistance?
Yeah. Like when I started, there's always like, questions of like, is this really what I want to do? Like, did I make the right decision? Like you obviously miss hockey. So there's always that, like it's a part of your life and now you're doing something completely different. But I think like, because especially like with Klaviyo, it is a lot of like, former athletes and like, just like the culture is so strong. And I just like the people made it a lot easier to kind of transition because I felt like a lot of them had either gone through like something similar, or they're just like great people. That makes it so much easier when you're like working for a company where it's like you get along with everyone. It's like kind of like a team first environment. Like that really helped too. But also just like day to day, just like knowing like this is something different and it feels hard right now, but that's why day to day you just, you put in the work and then you know that it's going to pay off. So there's definitely moments of, being challenged and things like that and like second guessing, but I didn't want to have any regrets or doubts. So I'm someone, I just like put everything into it. And if at the very least, if I don't like it, at least I know I got something out of it because I tried my best.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. What a good like mic drop moment. I think myself, speaking from my own experience, definitely understand a bit of imposter syndrome or a loss of identity when your sport ends. And I know a lot of my teammates here at Shift Group feel the same way too. It sounds like surrounding yourself with people who maybe also got it and understood made the transition a little bit easier.
Yeah, that was huge. And like, that's, I think, like a huge reason why like a lot of people do like hesitate. Like, a lot of people go into coaching which is, totally great. If you want to do that, that's awesome. But I also know some people go in and they're like, it's because like, I feel like this is all I can do. And it's like, that's so, especially if you like just graduated college, it's like, you're so young, like that's not all you can do. That's just all you've done up until this point.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, again, like it's okay to be uncomfortable. And the more you can get out of your comfort zone, the more comfortable you can be being uncomfortable. I think that's a very commonly used like phrase, especially in athletics, like be uncomfortable, like get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so you just have to, you kind of have to just start. And a lot of my friends who have like recently graduated from college, like played hockey, and they get into sales, they're like, wow, I wish I had done this sooner type thing. Like that they didn't prolong it, that they had gone into it earlier because they do end up enjoying it.
Yeah. Get uncomfortable get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Being uncomfortable. Yeah. I know. Say that 10 times fast.
So tell us about your journey then. You got into sales, you fought through the discomfort as a BDR, and then you eventually were promoted to account executive. What was that transition like? How did that go for you?
Yeah. I did really enjoy being a BDR. I know that sounds crazy, but like I had a really great account executive that I worked with. He taught me so much. I was fortunate, like he was a super successful account executive too. So like we had a great thing going with our, our team. But when I was, obviously that led to, success and then being promoted. And I think that's like, I learned a ton transitioning from being a BDR to an account executive, because you're in the meetings as a BDR, you kind of see how it works, but like there's really no better way to learn than to be kind of just like thrown into it. And I remember when I was going through that transition, they were like, yeah, like you can take some calls, do some demos. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like a real customer, like, or prospect, like what am I going to do? And that's like the best way I learn is just by like, failing and learning from it, or like, trial and error, just trying it and doing it, even if it's like super challenging or uncomfortable. So I really enjoyed that process of like, hopping on a call, like being super like, preparing for it, but like, knowing that like, it's not going to be perfect. And that's how you kind of learn. That's like that growth mindset. And then, once you kind of start getting into the role and doing the job, like it just becomes so second nature. Cause I remember like, I was like, how do account executives just like, they don't prepare for their calls for like, an hour and a half. They just kind of like log on it and they're so natural at it and so good. And, at the end of the day, like it's just the reps, just like it is with sports, like getting in the reps, then you'll end up, doing well and getting better at the job. So I enjoyed like learning of how to become like a good account executive. It was a great learning experience. I enjoyed it a lot.
That's amazing. Yeah, putting in the reps. There's so many parallels to our athletic careers, directly translatable to sales. How then did you become involved with the women's national team? How did you become the head scout for them?
Yeah. So I did like still when I was a BDR and an account executive until like this past year was the first year that I like wasn't playing hockey at all. I was like playing in the professional league, but it was more like kind of just like weekends. So I was able to balance it with my with Klaviyo. And now, since, there's like a full league and it's like, run like a real professional league, that I couldn't obviously do both. And I enjoyed my career. I was kind of like done playing hockey. So I made the switch. And so this opportunity, they, needed a head scout. They hadn't really had one since the previous Olympics. And so I was just kind of talking to the director, and it just sounded like an amazing fit. Like I can still be super involved with, Team USA and help like any way I can with like the younger, especially like the U18 national team, just being a part of that as a player. Like I felt like I could make a big impact there. And it's not like, you're not going into an office every day. There's a good amount of travel, but like I could balance it with what I was doing in software and sales. And so it was like a perfect fit, no brainer. And this past year was such a blast. It was my first year this past year. And, I got to go to Switzerland for the U18 World Championships.
Awesome.
We went to, like Worlds were in, Utica, New York for the older team. But like, just like being back in the game, it just like gave me this like additional like sense of purpose. And it also made me like more motivated with tech sales, just because it was just like playing hockey and doing school all over again with like the time management and balance. So I loved it. Yeah, I love it.
That's so cool. That is so cool that you get to have both worlds there. Like you get to stay with your passion, your sport that you love, and have the balance in your professional career as well. I know you're going through a bit of a career transition right now, and you're more than happy to hit pass on this question. I don't want you to have to share too much. But is there anything that really motivated you to make a change at this point in your career, or to step in a direction?
Yeah, I mean, I had been with like Klaviyo for like, it's like almost 4 years now. And, again, love the company, love the people, the product, it just keeps growing. And also like, there's a huge, like strong culture. People are in the office, a lot now. And, with my first, like my schedule being traveling a lot, that was something that I did kind of consider. Like I'm a team oriented person. I don't want to, be on this team and like not be able to be there if others are. But then I also thought like, I've been here for a while now, like what is kind of my next step? Like, do I want to kind of, try something similar in the same vein with sales, but, somewhat different. So I am like taking it's like a partnership agency sales role. So you're still like in sales, but you're working more with like partners and agencies at a different company. And it's, I think it's going to be, like just a new challenge, like kind of get my feet wet in a different little sector, but not like completely jumping, to a fully different role. So I'm super excited. That's kind of what like motivated me, was just like, I'm always looking for like that next challenge, that next thing to learn and grow. And it took some time to just like figure out what I wanted that to be. And I'm excited to get started with that soon.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Congratulations. Also, I know
Thank you.
Making a change, like choosing to make the change, can sometimes feel difficult, but it makes us grow so much. So I think that's awesome that you're taking a step in a different direction or growing in that direction.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm super pumped. Yeah, it's all about just, trying new things and seeing if you like it. And that, like, I'm all for that. I really do recommend doing that.
Yeah, you're never going to know if you don't try. I mean,
exactly.
I think you made a really good point when you said a lot of athletes, their career ends and they go into coaching because it feels like the most natural or maybe even comfortable next step for them, because they feel like they have all this knowledge here that they want to continue to give back or use. But yeah, you're never going to know what else you like until you try it. And you fail hard and fast, and then you adjust quickly.
Exactly. Yeah. Like and again, like, I would never thought I would like get into sales. Like my mom was, she was in sales when I was younger, and I was like, oh, like hearing her calls and things like that. I mean, there was like really not much like emailing. So it was literally just like cold calling all day long. And she still does it. She's like amazing at it. We're very different. But like, I just remember being like, that is not like, I don't want to do that. And so that was like always ingrained in my head. And then when I was like, again, like it's really important just to like talk to people that are different companies, different industries. It was like a very enlightening experience. Like, oh, this is like very different than what I had in mind of sales. Like people just like kind of put sales in this box of, like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to annoy people. I don't want to like cold call all day long, but it's a very different, it's a different career now. So after learning about it made it just a completely different decision for me. Cause I was like, okay, you can like own your success really. Like what you put into it is what you get out of it. And there are so many translatables from like being an athlete. You do like the resilience piece is so huge because you are going to be told no a lot. And it's like the people who are fine with that and just move on to the next are the ones who really see success in the roles.
Yeah. Amen to that. The rejection piece is huge. Being able to just let it roll off your back, just like you would in your sport.
Yeah. Yeah. That was like my biggest thing. Like getting started, I like hated like, via email, like, no, thank you. Or like, if it was like respectful or rude or whatever it was, I was just like pissed that someone said no. And then I was like, why do I even care? Let's just keep going. And that was like one of the early learnings for me of like how to kind of be successful in the role.
Yeah. I can relate to that for sure. In my past PR roles too. It can be challenging. Do you feel like it was a process in order to not take it personally or to let it roll off your back? Or how did you get over that initially?
Yeah, it was more just like the first few, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Like, cause especially like I'm sure a lot of like, athletes can relate, like, you're used to winning, you're used to like succeeding and doing well. So like, I was just like, oh, like someone said no. And then, it happened a few more times. I was like, oh, okay, got it. Like, like I have pretty thick skin. So I wasn't like, but I was just like, oh, that's like kind of weird. Like, why wouldn't someone say yes? And then you just kind of like, again, it's like, it happens a few times and then you're like, okay, well, how can I get this person to say yes? Like how can we kind of, turn this around? And so that's kind of, those were like the main early lessons I learned was just like objections, persistence was a huge one. And, just the resilience piece of it.
Yeah. I love it. I could keep going on. I know we only have a few left, so I want to get in a couple last questions.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I just, a lot of us, especially former athletes, we tend to get really tied up in our identity as athletes. And then we tend to bring that into our careers as well. And we put a lot of identity in our career. So we sometimes forget that we're people outside of this professional world. So I just want to know what fills your cup outside of work.
Yeah. So I'm still like, I've always been, I guess there's two things. Like I love music. So we're actually, a lot of my friends we're going to the Zach Bryan concert at Gillette Stadium in Mass tonight. And then Noah Khan's at Fenway Park tomorrow. So like, I'm a big like concerts, music person, all about it. It's definitely something like through sports too. It just like, when I'm training or whatever it is, like, it's just always been kind of like the backbone for me. I wish I could play an instrument. I'm like literally terrible at everything music related. Can't dance, can't sing, but I do really enjoy it.
I can relate. Exactly. Like love music, have no musical talent whatsoever.
It's so unfortunate. But I knew that early. So I didn't, we moved along and we still like it. And then also just like now that I'm not playing on a team and training for a particular sport, I still love like exercising. And I got into like running. I ran the New York City Marathon with the Women's Sports Foundation 2 years ago now. And so that was a really cool experience with the captain of the Olympic team, like our captain in 2018. She was the president of the Women's Sports Foundation. So we trained for it together. And it was just cool to like, train for something again. So I like really enjoy like having something like that, on the, fitness athletic side. That's not necessarily obviously like hockey. So I work out like every day, but it's a lot of just like running, biking, things like that, which is also something that kind of keeps me going.
I love it. Thank you so much, Haley, for sharing. Final question for you in the last minute here. What advice would you offer to women or anyone at this point considering a career in sales?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just like if you have any consideration, just go for it. And like, kind of just dive in, like put all of your eggs in that basket and it's like such a rewarding experience, just like kind of going through that journey and kind of just trusting the process too. Like just go for it, try it. Like everything you've learned with like throughout athletics, bring that confidence with you and you'll look back in a few years and be like, wow, like I can't believe that I'm, an account executive at XYZ, like doing so well. It is so rewarding. And if there's any consideration that you want to do it, I just go for it. And trust me, you'll thank yourself later.
Mic drop. Amen. Thank you so much, Haley. Yes, just try it. And you can always adjust later.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Haley. This was an awesome conversation. As always, I could go on for another half hour. But can I encourage anyone to follow you on LinkedIn? There?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much, Haley, for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
See everyone next week. Thank you.